Something truly unique to the tradition of Thelema founded by the infamous occultist Aleister Crowley is this idea of Aeonic Succession, and that's exactly what I want to talk to you today about, because I think understanding Aeonic Succession in Thelema will help you not only understand it in Thelema, but if you're somewhat interested in the practice of magic and the occult, and also doing magic, I think this will be really helpful to you to help you take your magic to the next level. And this applies, I think, to everyone, whether or not you are a Thelemite. So welcome everyone. For those who are brand new to me, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Maevius Lynn. I'm a practicing occultist, ceremonial magician, and the particular focus of my path is Thelema, and that's what I'm here to talk to you all today about. So essentially, in Thelema, we have the central sacred holy text known as the Book of the Law, and I don't want to dwell on just basic Thelema stuff. I want to dive right into this idea of Aeonic Succession, and so that does pose some issues for such a diverse audience here on YouTube. If you're someone who's brand new and this is the first video you've seen about magic or Thelema or the occult, I think it would serve you very well to go check out some of my other videos about magic and what is Thelema and kind of get those things under your belt before approaching this, because I'm going to go right for the key central points. So for people who've been around a while, this is really a video for you, especially people who've been a practicing occultist, or maybe you're familiar with the Golden Dawn tradition. This will help you take your understanding to the next level, but if you don't have that foundation, this will be difficult for you, and you might misunderstand what I'm saying or be lost. And I don't want this to be something that dissuades you or makes you feel lost. So go check out some other stuff first before getting back into this concept of Aeonic Succession. So this Book of the Law, this is central sacred holy text of Thelema, and this guy proclaims the start of a new Aeon, otherwise known as the Aeon of Horus. And in Thelema, this is referred to as the Aeon of the Child, and the Aeon of the crowned and conquering child. And this is super interesting and super cool, because we consider humanity going through these different things called different Aeons. And this is basically different times throughout human history that are defined by different magical formulas. And if you are wanting to go really deep, really fast with this, even faster than my little video here, I'm going to recommend you check out Initiation in the Aeon of the Child by Gunther. This book will be really helpful for you, and I, as always, super encourage you to go read, because books will take you further into these ideas than a YouTube video. Although these are a great primer, a great little taste, a great little dip and dive. And also I love talking with you all and sort of exposing a new audience to these occult ideas. Also, really important, if you want another little dive into this idea of Aeonic Succession and what that means in the tradition of Thelema, I wrote a book. So go check out my upcoming book. It's available for pre-order now, and it's coming out May 8th in 2026. It's all about our holidays in Thelema. And I also go over the Thelemic calendar, the fact that we have our Thelemic New Year's and the spring equinox, and I give you some practical ideas to celebrate these holidays. And also Aeonic Succession and the Aeon of Horus is also explored in my book. So the essential idea here, and by the way, I am reading off notes because I tend to ramble, and I want to make this as concise as possible for you all. So the essential idea here about Aeonic Succession is that our planet's axis has a slow wobble that causes the point where the ecliptic crosses the celestial equator on the equinox to move backward a small amount every year. And this is called the precession of the equinoxes. You can notice this shift on any day of the year, but the equinox is just a precise astronomical point that we're going to use. And it takes about 26,000 years for this wobble to make a full cycle through the zodiac on the equinox. So when we talk about the zodiac, of course, there are 12 zodiac signs. I'm talking about Western esoteric tradition of Thelema. We're using the 12 classical zodiacal signs, and therefore it takes approximately, we take 26,000 divided by 12, and that gives us roughly 2,166.67 years for the equinox to proceed through an astrological sign. So, what does this mean? The current Aeon that brought the birth of Thelema corresponds to the sun rising in Aquarius on the equinox. So the previous era, what I would consider to be the Abrahamic era, the era of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, this is the Aeon before the current Aeon, corresponds to the sun rising in Pisces on the equinox. And so this crops up with a lot of what I would be referring to, and is considered in Thelema to be the old Aeon. And it's really interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of connections there to unpack, and I do unpack them in my book, so go check out that if you want a deeper dive. But the sun rising in Pisces, obviously Pisces, the fish, has deep associations with Jesus. And the sun rising in Aquarius has some really interesting associations and implications in Thelema. So one of them, of course, deals with our treatment of Nuit and this idea of every man and every woman as a star. You'll see references in pop culture to this thing called the Age of Aquarius, or the Aquarian Age. And so, as we dive into these astrological meanings, I think a written article or a book would do a much better job exploring all of this. But just to kind of give you a taste of what that means. So the opposite sign of Aquarius is Leo. If you think about the zodiac. So Crowley interpreted this esoteric meaning of the age, this esoteric Leo, as Babylon riding the great beast. So Babylon being a goddess in Thelema riding the great beast, which is, Thelema has a very unique take on Babylon and the beast, which is, of course, harkens, these terms sort of begin to bud in the Bible, and they mean something different. So along the kind of esoteric path, next we have, of course, John Dee and his Enochian system of magic that came up with the term Babylon, spelled different than the Babylon of the Bible. And so John Dee's Enochian Babylon has a B-A-B-A instead of that Y in there. And so this pops up again when Aleister Crowley scries the Enochian Aethers. And so this Babylon goddess sort of makes an appearance there. So anyways, that's how Crowley interpreted it. And there's so much to unpack there. I'm trying to stay focused. So Aeonic Succession. So there's this idea that humankind moves through these different aeons. And you can also unpack these aeons in accordance to this idea in Golden Dawn, but also in Thelema, and also in Kabbalah, of the Yod-He, Vav-He formula. So, Yod-He, Vav-He, so Yod being associated with the mother, He, the father, Vav, the son, and then He, the daughter. So, Yod-He, Vav-He. So, the original Yod, this Aeon even before the Abrahamic Aeon, the Yod, the really old Aeon of humanity, is considered the Aeon of the mother, or the matriarchal age. Now, I feel like some of this is sort of forcing things to fit our understanding of the world, forcing human history into these little boxes, and that doesn't necessarily reflect actual history pretty neatly, right? But it can be a poetic understanding of the passage of time. It can be a beautiful way to reflect on our own humanity and our own travels of our lifetime and of humanity's lifetime on this earth. So, although it may not be firmly rooted in history, I think it can be still a very powerful and meaningful way to explore understanding magic and time. Anyway, so we have the matriarchal age, and then after that, when this zodiacal shift happened, we get the patriarchal age. We get the age of Osiris and the Osirian formula, the formula of the dying god. And this is reflected in the Abrahamic religions. Of course, we have Jesus, for example, heavily associated with this formula of the dying god. And then we have this shift, this astrological shift happen, and this happened as a result of, or in conjunction with, the supreme ritual and the celestial event known as the equinox of the gods that happened on the spring equinox, associated with eventually channeling the Book of the Law. So this equinox of the gods announced the arrival of the new Aeon, or the Aeon of the child, and with it comes a new magical formula. And so this magical formula is associated not with self-sacrifice and the formula of the dying god. The Aeon of the child is instead associated with self-liberation. It's associated with freedom of expression, a childlike sense of curiosity and wonder in the world, self-realization, self-actualization, this idea of being an individual. And when I think about these characteristics and like how they actually pop up into the world, something that comes to mind is what does this actually mean as a person living in these different aeons? And for me, I sort of see the Aeon of the child everywhere. I see it in our culture, in our music, this sort of striving for liberation, sexual freedom, freedom of the individual, and celebrating our individuality. In music, literature, pop culture, I think we are also, considering current events and everything going on, we're also in a time of great social upheaval. And I think the Aeons don't come silently. I think they sometimes come with a bit of fanfare as things change, as they always do. And when considering Aeonic Succession and this idea of movement throughout human history, Thelema as a religion is just simply the first religion to pop out of this new Aeon. But I think most people would agree it's not going to be the last. It's just a first expression of religion for humanity. And it's bound to change, and that's a beautiful thing. I anticipate many other expressions of religion to pop up as human history goes on. But Thelema's the first, and it's a beautiful one that I find very helpful and very illuminating along my personal path as a human being and a magical person, a magician in and of myself. So, let's rein it back in. So, what does it practically mean for us to be living in a new Aeon? It's like, okay, cool, so this Aeon has this current associated with it in a magical formula. Maybe that's popping up in pop culture, but speaking to my fellow practitioners here, what does it actually mean to do a ritual or perform ritual or do prayer and any of this stuff in the new Aeon? Does the formula of the old Aeon still work? How about some of these older things? And look at Thelema itself. It contains some of the imagery and aesthetic of some of the old Aeon. And I would say these are all really important considerations and something I think about and many other magicians, including Aleister Crowley, have thought about. So the first thing here is, in my opinion, the Aeons aren't like a light switch. When one ends, it's not like the whole room goes dark. It's more like a setting sun. And the new Aeon is like a rising sun. So, in this period of leaving the old Aeon and embracing the new, there's still some light there shed on the old formulas. These old magical formulas still have some juice in them. Now, things written in the new Aeon using the symbols and words of power and all this stuff associated that can be found throughout the holy books of Thelema, for example, in the new Aeon, those have a lot of power, and a little bit of juice in them as well. And so the idea is tapping into the magical juice out there in the world, the magical current. And I think you can do this quite effectively by including, for example, an old ritual may still work, an old formula may still work, but maybe you could include something that tethers it and plugs it into the new Aeon, such as a word. such as a phrase, such as magical gestures, things like that. So something I like to use, you can insert parts of text from some of the holy books of Thelema, and of course one of those, forefront being the Book of the Law. This is a beautiful way to take your ritual work to the next level, whether group or solitary, is inserting some of these bits of these holy texts. The Vision of the Voice is another great one to borrow from. Really beautiful stuff in there. And that's where we get a lot of our Babylon stuff as well as Libraheth. And also using, words like Iwas, for example, in some of your prayer invocations, Nuit. These are things coming out of Thelema that can be very powerful. So the idea is also not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So some of the truths we've discovered about our humanity and the human condition still apply, right? We're still humans. And as long as we continue to be humans and not AI monstrosities or cyborgs or something in the future, as long as we're still humans, the laws of the physical world still apply to us, right? So some of this magic and the way some of these things worked and we discovered worked in the old Aeon are still true for us today. So you can think about when you're writing rituals or doing your practice or whatever the case may be, it's still probably going to work. Maybe you could take it up to the next level by putting some of the new Aeon in it, by putting a little bit of Thelema. And you all know, if you've watched me anywhere, I always say a little bit of magic is better than no magic. And a little bit of Thelema in your ritual practice is better than none. And so you can take some of these old things and tie them again to the new Aeon this way. So I think that that's a pretty good description and exploration of what Aeonic Succession is in Thelema, as well as some of the practical applications and meanings for an individual. And I want to leave you with this quote from Aleister Crowley in Little Essays Towards Truth, where he discusses this idea that the new Aeon we're currently living in is a time for humanity to collectively move into greater consciousness and self-actualization. So this is a quote directly from Crowley. Quote, "The Aeon of Horus is here, and its first flower may well be this, that freed of the obsession of the doom of the ego in death, and of the limitation of the mind by reason, the best men again set out with eager eyes upon the path of the wise, the mountain track of the goat, and then the untrodden ridge that leads to the ice gleaming pinnacles of mastery." End quote. And of course, when Crowley talks about the best men, this is, it was standard practice in works like this and writing to refer to humanity in general as men. But the term is an inclusive one for men, women, and people of all genders. So I hope that helps for people who are brand new to this kind of reading for Crowley especially. So my call to action for my magical practitioners out there is to explore what this Aeon of Horus means to you. And dip and dabble and experiment with sort of bringing your magic into the new Aeon. Either trying out some Thelemic rituals, like saying will before you eat, trying out Liber Resh Vel Helios. By the way, I have 2 videos on both of those rituals and how to do them on my YouTube channel you can check out. But also maybe, if you already have an established practice or you're writing a ritual, maybe incorporate some things to tether to the new Aeon and see how that magic feels. Like, see what practical effects that may have had on the ritual and its performance and its impact. So these are just some ideas and concepts to play with, especially if you're a practitioner. So, if you want more information, I want to go a little deeper, you got to check out this book by Dan Gunther. Also check out my book that's coming out on the Holy Year of Thelema. I do a pretty good job going into this idea of Aeonic Succession, as well as the implications of the Aeon of the Child that we're living in. So, as always, I appreciate you so much for checking out this video and joining me today for this discussion of Aeonic Succession. thank you. Leave a comment below what you thought about this conversation, what your ideas are around Aeonic Succession, if you have something that works for you. And as always, I want to hear what else you would like to hear from me. What concepts would you like me to cover? So, thanks, y'all. I am the center of expression for the primal will to good, and so are you.